You're listening to the CyberWire Network, powered by N2K.
What's the one thing in business that's spreading as fast as AI? AI risk. Every new tool your team signs up for, every vendor that turns on AI features, every new integration, each one is an opportunity for something to go wrong. And most security programs weren't built for AI's pace of growth. Enter Vanta. Vanta is the #1 agentic trust platform used by over 16,000 fast-moving companies like Ramp, Cursor, and Harvey to ensure they're always audit-ready. And now, Vanta is helping companies like yours watch for the risks that show up between audits across your vendors, your AI tools, and your whole environment. The Vanta agent works like a 24/7 GRC engineer in the background, finding issues, drafting fixes for you, and cutting vendor assessment time by up to 50%. Whether you're a fast-growing startup or a global enterprise, Vanta is here to help you automate your security and compliance and earn and prove trust. Get started today at vanta.com/cyber. That's VANTA.com/cyber. The Justice Department says the U.S. has disrupted a Chinese hacking operation blamed for intrusions at several sensitive government agencies. CISA says more than 100 water systems were targeted in July. Attackers exploit a critical Gitea flaw, while malicious pages masquerade as Cloudflare verification screens. Cyber insurance claims get costlier, and AI agents break out of their sandboxes. Boston Scientific battles a cyber incident. A new standard tracks AI agent activity, criminals target stolen iPhones, and an alleged money mule is charged on a $7.5 million scam. Our guest is Stephen Hilt, Senior Threat Researcher at TrendAI, on the risks facing data centers. And some breach data doesn't quite measure up. It's Wednesday, August 26, 2026. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is your CyberWire Intel Briefing. Thanks for joining us here today. It is great, as always, to have you with us. The Justice Department says the U.S. has disrupted a Chinese hacking operation blamed for intrusions at several sensitive government agencies, including the Justice Department, NASA, the Federal Reserve, and the U.S. Senate. Authorities seized domains associated with two hacking platforms, known as QScan and QT Router, that were allegedly used in the campaign. The Chinese embassy in Washington did not immediately comment. Beijing has routinely denied responsibility for cyber attacks attributed to China. CISA says more than 100 internet-exposed water and wastewater systems were targeted in cyber attacks in July, the first federal accounting of the recent campaign's scope. The attack, linked to Iranian threat actors, targeted operational technology, often programmable logic controllers connected directly to cellular modems. At least a dozen states appear to have been affected, though the attacks caused no significant disruption. CISA is using the campaign to urge critical infrastructure operators to reduce their internet-facing attack surface. The agency recommends identifying exposed systems, removing unnecessary connections, changing default passwords, applying security updates, and routing required remote access through secure gateways with multi-factor authentication. CISA says PLCs and other industrial control systems exposed through cellular modems or the public internet have enabled recent malicious activity against the water sector. Elsewhere, CISA says attackers are actively exploiting a critical vulnerability in Gitea, the self-hosted software development platform. The flaw allows users with repository write access to execute arbitrary shell commands with the privileges of the Gitea service account. Because Gitea enables self-registration by default, an unauthenticated attacker could register an account, create a repository, and exploit the vulnerability without existing credentials. Gitea patched the flaw in a recent version. Shadow Server currently tracks nearly 5,000 internet-exposed Gitea instances, though it's unclear how many remain vulnerable. CISA has added the flaw to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog and ordered federal civilian agencies to remediate it by August 28th. Reported attacks have deployed cryptocurrency mining malware on unpatched servers. Threat actors are abusing NPM and its mirrors to host malicious HTML pages disguised as Cloudflare verification screens. Researchers at Ox Security identified 24 packages using the technique. Unlike traditional NPM supply chain attacks, the packages don't infect developers who install them. Instead, attackers use NPM as storage and services such as Unpackage to render the malicious pages from legitimate domains, potentially helping them evade security controls. The pages embed Cloudflare's legitimate turnstile CAPTCHA, but obfuscated JavaScript redirects visitors regardless of whether verification succeeds. Some versions retrieve encrypted destination URLs from a separate service, allowing attackers to change redirects without republishing the NPM package. Researchers warn those destinations could lead to phishing pages or malware, and that malicious files may remain accessible through mirrors even after NPM removes the original packages. Each Wednesday, we feature the latest from our T-Space Cyber podcast team. Maria Vermazis is out this week, so Ethan Cook files this report.
Thanks, Dave. Last Friday, President Trump signed a new memo that looks to dramatically increase support for commercial space launches. The White House signals that it wants to enable at least 1,000 launches and re-entries annually by 2030, which is a significant increase from the 178 launches conducted in 2025. The memo also directs NASA to facilitate commercial transportation to the moon and commercial robotic access to Mars. The memo called on agencies to incentivize co-development for space transportation infrastructure, expedite permitting and environmental reviews, and ensure necessary wireless spectrum access for space launches. Lastly, the administration tasked agencies with identifying a new federal re-entry site within 90 days. For the T-Space Cyber Briefing, this is producer Ethan Cook. Back to you, Dave.
Be sure to check out the T-Space Cyber podcast wherever you get your favorite shows. Cyber insurance claims are getting more expensive for larger companies, even as fewer claims are being filed. Chubb's 2026 Cyber Claims Report found that average claim cost in 2025 rose 22% for U.S. middle-market companies and doubled for large firms. The UK and Europe saw similar increases of 34% and 98%, respectively. Chubb attributes the rising severity largely to data breach and privacy legislation, along with higher business interruption costs. U.S. claims were substantially more expensive, reflecting significant third-party litigation expenses not seen in the UK and Europe. The insurer also warns that expanding privacy laws and ransomware-related data leaks are increasing companies' litigation exposure. In the U.S., even administrative fees can be substantial. A case involving 10,000 claimants could generate more than $10 million in non-refundable fees before its merits are considered. A researcher from Trail of Bits testing GPT 5.6 Cyber found the AI agent could repeatedly escape a virtual machine intended to contain it. The agent first exploited recently disclosed host kernel vulnerabilities, then combined flaws in a networking library. After the researcher rebuilt the environment and its dependencies from current upstream code, the agent spent roughly 12 hours autonomously researching the attack surface and ultimately assembled a reliable escape chain involving several previously unknown vulnerabilities. The experiment suggests conventional VMs may no longer provide sufficient isolation for highly capable cyber agents. The researcher recommends minimizing attack surface, rapidly applying upstream updates, restricting network access and privileges, and closely monitoring agent activity. Firecracker proves substantially more resistant in additional testing, although the agent could still hard lock the host through already patched Linux kernel flaws. Boston Scientific says a cybersecurity incident is disrupting global operations, including information systems used to process and ship customer orders. The medical device maker detected the incident August 25th and brought in third-party cybersecurity specialists to investigate and contain the threat. Some business operations are expected to remain affected during recovery. Boston Scientific says it has not determined whether the incident is likely to have a material impact. The full scope and nature of the attack remain under investigation. The Linux Foundation is backing Trace, a new open standard designed to provide tamper-resistance evidence of what AI agents actually do. Developed by confidential computing vendor Opaque with support from AMD, Intel, Microsoft, and Technology Innovation Institute, Trace creates hardware-backed, cryptologically verifiable records of an agent's runtime environment, software, policies, data classifications, and tool use. The specification combines existing Internet standards with confidential computing technologies, including AMD's secure encrypted virtualization, to produce portable evidence that organizations can independently verify across infrastructure providers. The Linux Foundation will provide vendor-neutral governance with technical work hosted by the Coalition for Secure AI. Trace addresses a growing concern as autonomous agents enter production. Policies and sandbox configurations can define intended behavior, but don't necessarily prove which controls remained active or what the agent actually did. Researchers at SOC Radar have uncovered Anonymous Kit, a phishing-as-a-service platform designed to help criminals unlock stolen Apple devices and bypass activation lock. Active since early 2024, the service is linked to 506 domains and 168 reseller storefronts. Anonymous Kit extracts owner contact information from stolen devices and targets victims through email, SMS, WhatsApp, and AI-generated phone calls. Messages impersonate Apple, using accurate device details to convince victims their missing iPhone has been found. Fake Apple pages then solicit device passcodes, Apple account credentials, and two-factor authentication codes. In some cases, an AI voice agent posing as Apple support assists with the deception. Successful attacks can allow criminals to access personal data, remove devices from Find My, and resell them. Compromised accounts could also expose iCloud backups, keychain passwords, and corporate information. A 21-year-old Indian national is facing federal charges for allegedly helping overseas scammers steal more than $7.5 million from at least 9 elderly victims in New York and New Jersey. Prosecutors say J. Sunabharthi Goswami served as a money mule, collecting cash, gold, and gift cards from victims deceived by scammers impersonating law enforcement or government officials. Authorities allege Goswami received victim addresses and code words, collected the assets, and transported them for eventual transfer to India, earning about $90,000. After an earlier arrest in December 2025, prosecutors say he continued participating in the scheme. Following another arrest in August, Goswami allegedly fled to Canada and attempted to fly from Toronto to Doha. Canadian authorities arrested him at the airport, and he is awaiting extradition to the United States. Coming up after the break, my conversation with Stephen Hilt, Senior Threat Researcher at TrendAI, on the risks facing data centers. and some breach data doesn't quite measure up. Stay with us. AI is transforming the way organizations work. But what happens when we rely on it so much that we begin losing the human judgment and context that make good decisions possible? I recently sat down with Johnny Hand from TrendAI, and he made an important point about what we risk when we offload too much AI.
We risk our most valuable resource, which is our human context, our creativity, our ability to understand contextually, like in the environment, those things. Those are really hard challenges for AI to tackle.
If you're trying to separate AI hype from operational reality, I think you'll really enjoy this conversation. Listen now at explore.thecyberwire.com/trendai. Stephen Hilt is Senior Threat Researcher at TrendAI. In today's sponsored Industry Voices conversation, our discussion from Black Hat about the cybersecurity risks facing data centers. We are continuing our conversations here at Black Hat 2026, and joining me is Stephen Hilt. He is a Senior Threat Researcher with TrendAI. Stephen, thanks so much for taking the time for us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to you about the presentation that you gave. This was at DEF CON, about exposed data centers, bypass IT security, crank up the heat. Before we get into the specifics, what made you decide to take on this topic?
So it's kind of an iteration of things that I've paid attention to for the last 15 years or so with exposed control systems. And I think right now is very timely, not planned, but with the Iranian and CISA alerts and things around that about critical infrastructure being attacked. It's actually timely because this is just another avenue that needs to be addressed.
Well, I no question that data centers are in the news these days, for better or for worse. Our need for them, but also communities aren't always happy when they're being built too close by. What are some of the specific vulnerabilities that you talked about in your presentation?
So there are vulnerabilities that have existed. It's just exposed building automation systems. What we've done, and we've done in previous research for other types of systems like exposed oil and gas, is in this case we looked at data centers, and the way we did that was we try to triangulate where the data center is. We found some publications that helped us guide us into that direction. And then we were able to search online footprints of what's exposed within that region and reducing it down by size and numbers, removing false positives to say the likelihood that this device belongs to that control system or to that data center is pretty high.
So let me just back up there. So what you're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, your goal was to figure out first where a data center is. Can you use publicly available information to figure that out? Was that the first step?
Yeah, there's a lot of news articles. As you mentioned, data centers are a very hot topic right now. So we leveraged some of that information that's coming out where people and other journalists have identified where all the data centers are. Specifically in our case for this research is in the U.S. There's other listings that exist for other countries as well.
Okay.
So we took that and then based off of that information started reducing and searching online footprints.
Well, let's go through that process together. Can you walk us through that journey?
Yeah, it's actually, we filed a patent on it a couple years ago and it was granted. So it is called geostalking. And the reason why we want to talk about it is people need to do this. So the idea would be we did it for data centers, but you should be able to do this on your locations to find things that are potentially exposed. And in that process, we lay out how to do that for your own facilities to map around what's around it.
Okay.
And then you as a owner should know what looks like your data, what looks like your systems. It's a way to help fight shadow IT. and get better at knowing what is your assets.
Is this applicable to manufacturing facilities or enterprise IT? Does it matter the vertical?
It does not matter. That process doesn't matter. We're just choosing data centers in this case because of a hot topic. I think, as you even mentioned earlier, they're hot topics. I like to look at data centers as the new not in my backyard.
Yes.
You see those signs posted on social media all the time about data center. No.
Yeah.
It's the new not in my backyard. So it is a hot topic for lots of reasons, not just cyber attacks, but also if you can find where data centers are. People may take interest physically of where they are. So having that information out there. Also, people need to know that that information does exist, that we were able to do that. So maybe we need to address that as well.
Well, can we dig into some of the specifics that you found with the data centers? So what kind of information were you able to uncover, and what are the implications of it?
So nothing's out of the ordinary. BACnet and Niagara Fox, which are two building automation protocols, are easy to identify online.
Okay.
If it's exposed, you can find it. Now what you can do with those is you can control the building. So the touch panels, the sensors in each room telling you what temperature it is, the HVAC to the fire suppression systems, all of that is controlled through building automation protocols. So if that's exposed, then we can find that any building, we could control it remotely. We could make new set points, raise the temperature, hence the crank up the heat.
Right.
So and that doesn't apply, that applies for everything, including data centers, because they have lots of cooling, lots of power requirements. All those types of things can be affected through the building automation system. And what is more striking is, in a lot of cases, when you are a tenant in a building and not the owner, it's not your building automation system. So it is the owners, not the tenants, to control. So that's where that conversation needs to be happening, is CISOs need to be talking to their facilities and say, we need to make sure these things are online.
Right. The owners issued us these key fobs. The owners are timing the HVAC for these times of day, or those sorts of things.
And so the example in our case is data centers, because they're ultra critical. And, if you raise the heat in a data center, servers shut down to protect themselves.
Right.
So in theory, could we raise the heat up and make it look like it was never raising? Yeah. Because you can
have the sensors report false information, for example, so the heat's going up, but nobody knows it.
You could, yes.
Okay. And you say you could. Could you?
Yes.
Okay. You understand my question?
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't do it.
Right.
But it has been done in the past.
I see. So based on this information, what are your recommendations? What did you say to the folks in the audience, the steps they can take to mitigate these things?
As always, asset inventory is very critical, including inventory that is not necessarily your control, but controls what affects you. We need to think of like that, where we are out there profiling everything that controls and affects our day-to-day operations.
What about the concerns from, say, activists? I remember a while back I interviewed somebody who worked in a controversial manufacturing sector, and I'd never really thought about it. He said one of the things as the CISO of his company was keeping an eye on the media, because sometimes people came to their facilities to protest, and he had to kind of keep an eye on if people had ill intent. It seems to me like part of what you're talking about here is, if you can get this information, then people who have ill intent probably could as well, and use it to their advantage.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be always just, as I mentioned earlier, with everything going on as nation states. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be activists. It can be cyber criminals who have with just ill intentions, not necessarily espionage, or they just purely want to destroy things. And that's the whole not my backyard kind of approach, which is we do need to pay attention to our exposed assets for those types of purposes as well.
What do you suppose the future looks like for this? As the information like you've discovered here and you're sharing with the folks out there, do you think we're going to see different approaches to how people handle building automation?
Yeah, I hope so. Like, the biggest thing is I want people to, much like all the other things we've been saying for the last 10, 15 years, is we need to get these things offline, not on the internet. We need to protect them, and we need to be talking to our building owners to make sure that they are meeting our requirements for security.
Where does a typical building owner sit in this? Are they blissfully unaware that these are even possibilities, or are these things on their radar?
I don't know. To answer you, honestly, I don't know.
I guess it depends on who they're providing to is a big part of it.
I think that would all depend on the building owners, how many tenants they have. Like, maybe you're the only tenant because you have a multi-floor data center.
Right.
You may be able to talk to them better than one that has, you have a small data center for your own purposes, and then you have 12 other tenants that you have to deal with as well. And one of them is the reason why it's online. I don't, it's one of those things that every scenario is different, so you wouldn't know the exact solutions. So that's why I think people need to be knowledgeable that this could happen, and they need to take actions to their own specific use cases.
What are the take-homes for you? What do you hope that people walked away from your presentation learning?
Yeah, that every type of asset inventory still matters. Fundamental basics still need to be applied. It's just now we have to think that other attack surfaces may exist, and how do we address those?
All right. Well, Stephen Hilt is Senior Threat Researcher at TrendAI. Stephen, thanks so much for joining us. That's Stephen Hilt from TrendAI. You can hear more from TrendAI on the AI Security Brief podcast that publishes every other Thursday on the N2K CyberWire network. On a recent episode, Mark Hout from DataBank joined hosts Johnny Hand and Dustin Childs to explain why securing the AI era starts with protecting the physical data centers that power it, and why proven security fundamentals still matter against rapidly evolving threats. We'll have a link to the AI Security Brief podcast in our show notes. And finally, Troy Hunt's analysis of an alleged Carhartt data breach began with an eye-catching number: nearly 25 million unique email addresses. Other reporting cited similar figures, which seemed reassuring. Then the data started behaving strangely. Using AI-assisted analysis and some decidedly old-fashioned eyeballing, Hunt found millions of synthetic records from the TPC-DS benchmarking dataset mixed with apparently genuine Carhartt customer data. Gibberish email domains, suspiciously uniform birth countries, and perfectly flat birth year distributions were among the giveaways. Removing benchmark data, Microsoft aliases, deactivated accounts, and test records eventually cut the total to about 12.9 million addresses. Hunt found strong evidence the remaining data genuinely originated from Carhartt, including employee addresses and Carhartt-specific email subaddresses. His larger point is that breach claims require verification. Criminals may dump the data, analysts may count it, and suddenly, synthetic test records have acquired victims, lawyers, and a headline.
Jolene, 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 I'm begging of you, please don't take my man.
And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing world of cybersecurity. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to cyberwire@n2k.com. N2K's lead producer is Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Trey Hester with original music and sound design by Elliot Peltzman. Our contributing host is Maria Vermazis. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilpie is our publisher, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow.